Hey, what's up? It's Greg. I am the game dev coach, and I'm going to teach you how to build games. In this video, I'm going to talk about materials, the inspector, the hierarchy, project settings, scene view versus game view, what Playmode Tint is and why that's awesome. But first, there's something you should know real quick. This video is part of a series, and in it, I assume that you've watched the other videos in the series, so I don't cover those things. If you're coming into this and you haven't watched the others, you might want to check out this playlist, start from the beginning, and that's going to really help you get the full impact of knowing what to do and why. With no further delay, here's your content. All right, so now we're going to add some color to our scene with materials. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click this. Now, yours might look a little bit different. You may not have quite as many different menu options. Don't worry about that. The things I use will be in your version. So we're going to first add a material. Give it a name. I'm just going to call it red material. You can call it anything you want. You can call it Bob. You can call it red material. You can call it blue material. You get the idea. Anyway, I'm going to click right here on the albedo and make it red. Then we've got our red material. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can apply it to an object. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do this, to apply a material to an object, because I want you to know there are different options. Most of the time in Unity, not unlike game development and programming, there are multiple ways to accomplish the same goal. So one way is to click it and drag it over here. And remember, nothing happens in the game view, but in the scene view, I can drag it and drop it onto that object, and that's it. It's applied to the object. I'm going to edit, undo. I can click it and I can drag it up there, and that works. Going to edit, undo, and in the future I'll just be using Control-Z or Command-Z to undo, as is the default with most programs. The third option is to select the object. You will need to scroll down a little bit to find a new area. And I clicked it and I'm dragging it over here. I let it go there, and then it's going to replace the standard material that was on there. So these are all different ways to accomplish the same thing. Next, we're going to take a slightly more in-depth look at the inspector, the hierarchy, and the project settings. We're going to set some things up, clean some stuff up. Let's dig into this a little bit more. Now, you've seen the hierarchy. As I said, this includes everything that is in the scene. Now, let me show you an example. Here I'm going to click. Let's go ahead and make a folder. We're going to call that folder materials. And I'm going to drag red material into there. I'm going to click the little arrow next to it. Now, another way to do a new material would be to right-click, create, and material. I'll call this green material. And then we are going to make it blue. I'm kidding, that would be terrible. We're going to make it green. I just click off there and it's green. Now, we've got our red cube. This is our scene, right? This is not used in the scene, but it is in the project. So if we want to, we can drag that over. We're going to keep the red one on there for now. But when I build the project, it's not going to include the green material if it's not used in any of the scenes. It won't. This is really useful. You can have things in your project that you're not using in the final build. Very, very helpful. For now, we're going to leave this. Let's go ahead and add another folder. We're going to call it scripts, and I put it in the wrong place, so I'm just going to click that and drag it out and let go there. Then it's going to drop alphabetically. Materials, scenes, scripts. That's probably all we need for right now. So, as I said, here are the objects in the scene. Now you'll notice each of these has different things going on, these different components. Whereas this has a camera component, this has a light component, this has a mesh component, a mesh renderer component, a box collider component, and a material component. So each of these little headers and these little arrows, those represent different components. This is the transform component. This is on every Unity object pretty much, and we'll talk about that more shortly. But next, we're going to talk about scenes while we're here in the project settings, organizing things. Scenes. Okay, so what's a scene? A scene is a collection of objects, period. Well, at its simplest level. It's a collection of objects that are going to work together, that are going to interact together, they're going to have content. Why would you want to use different scenes? Well, good question. You might want to, you could use different scenes for different levels. You could have a loading scene. You could have an intro scene. You could have a game over scene. You could have your main game level scene. If you've ever played the arcade game Donkey Kong, level 1 would be scene A, level 2 would be scene B, level 3 is a variation on scene A again, and level 4 would be scene C. So you can use scenes for a lot of different things. Basically think of it as a gathering of objects that are going to interact with each other in some way. Now we are currently in the sample scene, as it tells us right there. So there's our project name. There's our sample scene. That's the platform. That's the Unity version we're using. And there's the DirectX version we're using because I'm on PC. Now I have not saved my scene yet. I want to do that. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go and Save. Now I can load different scenes by double-clicking them. But before I do that, I want to make a different scene. I'm going to right-click and duplicate. I'm going to use my mouse wheel to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to do that, move that guy over, and I'm going to assign the green material to this object. Now I want to save, and not save, but save as. I'm going to double click into scenes, and I'm going to call this 2 cubes. Now, if I double click on sample scene, there's our scene with the cube. If I double click on 2 cubes, there's our 2 cubes, and maybe this is there and this is there. I'm going to save again. If I go back to sample scene, this is here, that's there. These things can be completely and entirely different. As I said, like this does not have the green material in it at all. I use scenes for a variety of different things. One of the other things I will do is I might have backups. If let's say I have this 2 cubes and I say, well, what would happen if I added a bunch of these? And so I'm going to click this, I'm going to shift click that, and I'm going to Control D on PC or Command D on Mac to duplicate. You can also just select, right click and duplicate and say I want those there. But I know I've got others, and so I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm just going to grab some of these, move them around, different things, just moving all the pieces around. And so I think that's all of them. I'm going to grab them all, I'm going to duplicate, I'm going to zoom out with them all still selected, I'm going to move again, I'm going to duplicate, I'm going to move again, and that's where you see that perspective really happening. Because we are in 3D. So now let's say, but I'm not sure if I want this, so I'm going to save as. I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to call this mini cubes, or I could call it 2 cubes 02. And so now I've got my 2 cubes, and then I've got my 2 cubes 02, also known as mini cubes, which I think, you know what, yeah, I'm going to right click and I'm going to rename and just put a note on there that says mini, and it says, hey, this open scene has been changed. Do you want to reload? Usually the answer is yes. If you're not sure why you're seeing that, the answer is probably no, because that might mean that something's corrupted or something like that. So now if I decide, you know, I don't like this, I just want to go back to the original two in the original position, boom, there you go. So scenes are useful for a lot of different things. For now, we're going to go back to the sample scene that's got our one cube in it. And so that's scenes. That covers what they are, how to interact with them, how to save them, and why you might want to use them. And next, we're going to talk about the difference between the scene view and the game view, go a little more in depth on that. All right, scene view versus game view. Now, we've talked about this a little bit. As I said before, I'm clicking here. You cannot interact with things in the game view. I still like to see it most of the time. Now, I know Unity starts with your game view behind the scene view. We moved away from that. This does give you more room for your scene, and then when you hit play, it's going to switch to the game view. I'm old school. This is the way Unity used to be set up a long time ago, or it was one of the setups. I really like most of the time having my game view there so I can see what that looks like. And there's other effects. You'll notice there's a grid here. There's widgets for the light, for the camera. That's not over here. This is more what the final product is going to look like, and I like having that on the screen. That's important for me. Now, one of the things I want to show you is something that you will want to change before you start doing very much. We're going to go to Edit. We're going to go to Preferences. We're going to go to Colors. Playmode Tint. Now, I've got mine set to a little bit of a blue already. So you can pick whatever you'd like. I suggest something that's subtle. You can go as crazy as you want. So I've got like this real kind of light, almost purplish lavender kind of blue. Let me show you what that does. When I hit play, see the screen? The whole screen just changed to that light blue, light purple kind of a tint. That reminds me I'm in play mode. I'm going to go out of play mode again, and then we're back to the much beloved dark mode. Now, you might say, well, why is that important? Well, I'll show you. So while we're in play mode, the play mode button is depressed, and the rest of the screen has that tint of whatever color you hopefully picked. You can do anything you want to your scene hierarchy. Don't mess with stuff in the project. That would be bad. Move that down a little bit out of the way. But let's say I want to add another cube. I want to move that, and I'm going to that. I'm going to move that. I'm going to grab those. I'm going to Control D to duplicate. I'm going to add those. I'm going to grab all those. I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it again and again and again and again, and there's just stuff all over the place. And let's say I even want to grab all those and Control D and just move them off just a little bit. And again, Control D, again. So there's a lot of stuff going on there, right? And let's say I want to take, I don't know, a half of them randomly. Now, you see this has cube 93 or cube 139. So that's for the individual one. If I grab multiples, either by picking one and then control clicking individual items, and most file systems and programs work this way, or if I click one and then I shift click another, this does what a lot of things do, and it's not showing a specific name because I'm currently editing all of those. Now if I grab the green material and I drag it over here in the empty space somewhere below that line, it's going to assign that to all of those cubes. And you see, they just changed to be green over here and over there. So you might go, okay, great, this is perfect. That's exactly what I want. And then you try to save. File, save. And it's like, oh, you must exit play mode to save the scene. Oh, okay, I guess I'll exit play mode. And you're like, what the what just happened? Where did all my stuff go? I had it exactly like I wanted. I had all the cubes. I had like 150 cubes and like 12 of them were green. What just happened? So let me explain. When you hit play, basically Unity is going to make an internal in-memory copy of everything in your scene, and when you come out of play mode, it's going to restore that copy. This is very frustrating if you don't realize you're in play mode and you start making a bunch of changes, but it can be very helpful if you're expecting that. That's why the play mode tint is there. Wasn't always there. Times, and anybody who's used Unity for any length of time has run into the situation where they change stuff and realize they're still in play mode, and you're kind of hosed at that point. It's all right. Play mode tint, very important. That way, I see this, I'm not going to get confused and forget that everything I'm doing is not going to be saved. That's really important. Next, we're going to talk about moving and rotating the object in the editor.